Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome to episode number 1 of the Delaware Dynasty here on EA Sports College Football 26, as this game has just launched for early access and we're going to jump right in to our new series build this program up from literally the very bottom, the newest team in FBS, to hopefully the mountaintop. Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob. If you have not seen any of my content before and you're excited for this one, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more Dynasty Mode content. This is a franchise/Dynasty-centric channel, and college football is a huge part of it. So let's get ready to jump into another year. I'm excited for this one because last year was the first year in 11 years that we've had a new college football game, and we took my alma mater, the South Carolina Gamecocks, and, still to be determined, but have made them into a pretty strong contender. And with that being the first year I had to do my alma mater, it made sense. This year I wanted to go a whole different route. Instead of doing the Power 4 in one of the top conferences, I wanted to take a Group of 5 team who was a little bit smaller and see how far we can get. And there's nobody smaller and nobody newer than one of the two newest teams in the FBS coming over from the FCS. The Delaware Fightin Blue Hens are making the jump in college football to the Conference USA. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into this team and get into this dynasty. So it's time to jump into the Delaware Blue Hens dynasty. Here they are, a one-star program. So yes, the very bottom, 67 overall, 69 offense, 66 defense. This team is going to need a lot of work, but that is why we are here for the challenge of rebuilding the Delaware Blue Hens, who are coming off a 9-2 year last year in the CAA of the FCS. And even though this is a bad team right here, this is a team that has a lot of history. Delaware was at one point the premier FCS school back in the 2000s, from about 2000 to 2010. This team was what some people say the FCS dynasty. They won a national title back in 2003, where they beat Colgate at the time in what was known as the 1AA, 40-0 in the championship game. And they went two more times in that decade, 2007, 2010, but were unable to win the championship. And Delaware's produced some players that have reached the NFL as well. Obviously, most notable is Joe Flacco, the one-time Delaware Blue Hen quarterback who broke over 20 school records during his time there. He led them to that 2007 FCS championship where they were unsuccessful, became a first-round pick with the Baltimore Ravens, has kind of bounced around the NFL, and currently finds himself on the Cleveland Browns. So, fortunately, it has kind of fallen off for the Delaware Blue Hens in recent years, and it's, going to be a little bit of a struggle to switch over to the FBS. But I'm excited for the challenge. I do think we do have a positive as well, being in the DMV area. I'm looking forward to recruiting in this area and establishing some roots in what could be a pretty good area for recruiting for this team. But I've talked a lot about the background of this team. As far as the coach story that we will be using, I will not be using their actual coach. We'll say that when the team got moved to the upper level, they fired Coach Ryan Carty. He wasn't really that good anyway in terms of his abilities, so we're going to create a whole new coach here. Last year, I did do the recruiting tool, the recruiter backstory. This year, I think I want to do the motivator. I think we're going to be a motivator this year. Get your players to play their best by boosting their ratings and composure. Nobody has it better than us. I am a teacher in the outside of YouTube world, and so therefore I can kind of be a motivator to my kids. So that's the thought process here. So we're going to be a motivator, and we're going to build our coach. All right, and here is our coach. Here is Mr. Rob. A look at the guy. We're going to be using the same playbook as Delaware. Obviously, my alma mater is South Carolina. And then pipeline is the Tidewater area. There's no Delaware pipeline, but this is the DMV kind of equivalent, North Virginia, stuff like that. I'm a pretty chill guy in real life, so we're going to be pretty calm, give us the classic stance, pretty balanced approach, I would say, at the beginning. And then, of course, as far as the gear, it is Delaware, so it gets a little colder towards the later part of the season. So we're going to rock with the long sleeve windbreaker. I like the way it looks. Here we are signing our actual contract. You can see no history. It says 2024 0-0. There is nothing after that. Goal is to win 4 games. I honestly think at the beginning that might be a little bit of a stretch, but that should be hopefully pretty easily accomplished in the next 3 seasons. So we're putting our name on that dotted line, and we're officially the head coach of the Delaware Fightin Blue Hens. Yeah, get 100 points for pre-ordering the game. All right, so the newest home screen. Here's what it looks like when you enter a new dynasty here on EA Sports College Football 25. As you can see, our coach there on the right, the Delaware logo in the middle. We are in the preseason, so we're going to go ahead and meet the team up next. I'm going to skip recruiting for now. I need to dive into the prospects and stuff like that. It's going to be a little bit harder to recruit also as a smaller school, but let's meet the team. It's been a while that we've done a lot of intro stuff, so let's see who is actually on this roster that makes us a 67 overall. Our top-rated players are 81 apiece. This is definitely a roster that is not in the topmost shape. But obviously, we'll start off with quarterback. Who is going to be the quarterback of this team? And it will be Zach Marker, the senior from Norfolk, who is a 74 overall player. You know, he is the returning starter from last year. He completed 55% of his passes last year, 1,000 yards, which led the team, surprisingly enough. 10 touchdowns, no interceptions, did not throw one last year, so he will be the starting quarterback. But he is a senior, so he'll only be around for 1 year. Behind him is junior Blake Brown, who, if anything happens to Marker, will be the guy to replace him. Doesn't have any previous experience with the team from Indiana, but we will probably turn to him next year. Then other than that, there's a couple of other guys that are in the 60s. Freshman E.J. Archfield Jr. is maybe a guy to look out for in the future. As far as the halfback, this is where our team shines, is in the backfield. Tied for the highest rated player on the team is Jonathan Silver, the senior. You know, this team graduated Marcus Yams last year, who was the leading rusher for this team, but now Jonathan Silver steps into that role. 70 carries last year, 462 yards, 4 touchdowns, but he averaged 6.6 yards per carry. So I'm excited to see what he can do. He's a playmaker, east to west. You got to get him sideline to sideline. He's going to be a guy that we rely on heavily in the first season. You know, as a runner, as a pass catcher, Jonathan Silver will be a focal point of the offense, but he's also a senior. So after year number 1, we're going to lose both our starting quarterback and our starting running back. There's also a good change of pace back in Saeed St. Fleur here, the junior, who last year rushed for 191 yards, averaging 5.6 yards per carry as well, and 2 touchdowns. So they have a pretty solid duo in the backfield. Silver will lead the way. St. Fleur will be a nice change of pace back, but I expect this team to really rely on those 2 guys in the early portion. We're not a good team, so I think our best chance at winning ball games might be to shorten the game, and you do that by running the football. So Silver and St. Fleur will be leading the way. Going into the receiving category, you know, there's some here. I'm a little bit surprised at the ratings for these guys. I didn't expect a lot because this team did lose their top wideout last year, Phil Lutz, and the guy replacing him is the returning leader from last year, Jake Thal, another senior on this team, especially on the skill position squad. He caught 41 catches last year, 334 yards, which is the returning lead for this Blue Hens receiving corps. Had 5 touchdowns. You know, he's a senior as well, so we're only going to have him for 1 year. And that's kind of the motto at the top. You can see 3 of the top 5 receivers are seniors, including our top 2. Max Patterson up next, another senior, caught 25 catches last year, 286 yards, but did not find the end zone. So it's a little bit surprising for a guy who, coming out of high school star rating, was a 3-star guy. So I expect Max Patterson to have a little bit bigger role this year. His archetype is a speedster, so I think maybe designing him some plays with his offense, getting the ball in his hands, you know, will definitely work to our benefit. But even though he's a speedster, he's only a 90 overall in terms of the speed category, which is the fastest player on this team at 6 foot 185. Just got to get him the football, looks like. The next receiver, who's the highest non-senior on this team, is Jakari Kelly, a junior from Gainesville, Florida. Caught 17 catches last year, 171 yards and 1 touchdown. 5'8", 170, a little bit of a smaller player. He's probably going to play majority in the slot. So we'll see what we can do with him. I don't expect him to make a lot of those tough grabs. He's just kind of a guy you just got to find plays for as well. This is a very unique receiving core. And outside of Thal and Patterson, I think it's pretty wide open. We're probably going to see some Sean Wilson as well. He's a sophomore, arguably the youngest receiver on this team, but it says in the top right corner there is a deal breaker potentially in the mix here. So if we don't meet his brand exposure, he could transfer. And the fact that we have an F as a brand exposure, that doesn't look good right out of the gates. But from Alpharetta, Georgia, Wilson last year only had 2 catches, but both of his catches last year were touchdowns, 2 for 31 and 2 scores. So a guy who, if he can replicate that, that would be great. But I think he'll probably try to get a role in the offense, especially if his brand exposure is his deal breaker. Him and Kelly will compete for playing time, but I think Wilson will probably get the slight edge early. I like the physical traits that are there as well over Kelly. So Sean Wilson might be that third receiver for this team. Also, guys, look out for Nicholas LeBoy. He's another senior, so he'll only be here for this first year. He had 15 catches last year, 164 yards, and 1 touchdown. He says he's a speedster, but he's only an 88 overall in the speed category. So a lot of these guys are going to have trouble creating separation. So we'll have to probably stick to more of a quick passing game this year. Also, junior Donovan Lewis had 5 catches, 31 yards. He's got some experience. He's got some good physical tools. Another small guy at only 5'9". And then there's also sophomore Nick Tyree and then a couple of other guys down the board. Going to the tight end number 1 will be Jake Brindell. And this is an interesting spot because there's not a lot of experience here in terms of previous seasons with the Blue Hens. Brindell's also got an F in the brand exposure, which is not ideal, as I see this team having a lot of turnover after the first season. Another reason why I picked the Delaware Blue Hens. I feel like this team is going to look a lot different really fast. But Brindell's a sophomore, 6'5", 240. I expect him to be a good security blanket as well for the offense. I think him catching a couple passes here and there, just building a good rapport with Zach Marker in year number 1 could really help this team. If he does struggle, there is senior Elijah Sessoms as well, who's another receiving tight end, and then Connor Withoff as well. But there's not a lot of experience with this tight end group. Get into the offensive line, where we have a solid left tackle to begin in Anwar O'Neal, a junior from the Philly area, and he's going to be a good blindside blocker for at least 1 season. He is a true junior. Conference prestige is a little low in terms of his deal breaker, so hopefully he doesn't transfer out because he would be a great guy to anchor that left side of the line right off the rip. Very fortunate to have him. And then behind him, there's freshman Noah Rossack, who could be his potential replacement with a couple of years of experience. On the left guard spot, Joaquim Roman is the top guy, a senior from Elizabeth, New Jersey. He's got a good physical trait in that inside shield. Another guy, 6'7", 318, a pretty big body guy. Hopefully we can run up the middle with him once we start to get into those conference play games where that big size is really going to matter. There's also Patrick Shupp if we want to play him as well, and then Nick Colson also on that offensive line. Starting center will be Steven Dembowski, another senior from New Jersey, a good, solid, well-rounded type of guy who comes in at 6'3", 300 pounds. Like I said, I feel like we have a good offensive line for year number 1 coming into the Conference USA, and Dombrowski will be a good captain of that offensive line for year number 1. But we do graduate our top 2 centers. Backup will be Patrick Methley, who is a Westchester transfer from the offseason, which is a D2 school. This team didn't have a lot of transfers come in. They also didn't have a lot leave, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. There's also true freshman Dion Dotson, who will probably take over once the centers graduate. At right guard, this is where a little bit of a drop-off. Anthony Cassie is the top-rated guy from Reading, Pennsylvania. He's a true junior. There's also the senior Jaime Ramos, who I probably prefer over Sessi, at right guard. But I'm thinking for the beginning, we'll at least probably start Patrick Shupp on that side. And then right tackle, Fintan Prose is a 74-rated senior who's got good shield opportunities out there on the right tackle spot as well. Another senior for this offensive line. And then also behind him is Cole Snyder, who's another senior. So we're going to have to rely heavily on our seniors this year on offense because year 2 is going to be kind of crazy when we get there. Now, we know the offense is the strength of this team. Now we get to the defensive side, which drops from a 69 overall to a 66. And we're looking at left edge up first. I am so happy that they changed the starting positions for this team. You don't have to worry about if you're a 3-4, 4-3 defensive end linebacker. So much shenanigans. So thank you, college football and EA, for switching that up. But left edge will be Noah Matthews, the Kentucky transfer, who's coming from a Power 4 school and is transferred to Delaware. So that's something to at least note. Now, he only had 7 tackles last year with the Wildcats, but that's a little bit of experience that he can bring to this team. So hopefully Noah Matthews, as only a sophomore, can really step up. Behind him, there's also sophomore Carson Shockley, who might get some snaps. On the right edge, a little bit of a drop-off. Jack Hall is the top-rated guy here. He is a senior from Richmond, Virginia. He says he's pure power at 6'2", 280 with 80 strength, which is pretty solid, I would say, to begin. He'll probably rotate as well with Keon Wright, who has better physical traits, in my opinion. Not as strong as Hall, not as fast, but I think he's got more intangibles. So Jack Hall and Keon Wright will probably start on the edge. Then we get into the defensive tackle. Keyshawn Hunter, probably the best offense or defensive lineman returning to this scene, a senior from Washington, D.C. He had 4.5 sacks last year with the Blue Hens, which is the returning lead for this team, and I'm digging the dyeing of the beard, the team colors. I love that sort of team loyalty, so that's going to be pretty cool. Not sure if that's actually a thing because he has a black beard in this picture. Maybe that's just an early glitch, but pretty cool to see nonetheless. Behind him is Dominic Brogna, who could play as well on some nickel downs, as well as Nick Carica and Ethan Saunders. All seniors, by the way. Then we get into the linebacker group, starting off with the Sam. We got Blake Matthews up first, the senior from Bremen, Georgia, who is probably, in my opinion, going to be the breakout linebacker off the rip. He's got pretty decent speed. You know, play rec is a little low, so is the awareness, but he's got that speed at 6'3", 215. A lurker of a linebacker, 3-star coming out of high school. So I think he will have a good breakout season off the rip. Behind him, there's also Montez Cowing, who's also a senior. And if you want your first non-senior, it's going to be Anthony Crenshaw. At the Mike linebacker, Gavin Moll, who last year led the team with 70 tackles. I did just say that the breakout linebacker might be Blake Matthews, and that's because, in my opinion, for this team, Gavin Moll's already broken out. He is the captain of the defense. 2 interceptions last year, also a forced fumble. I expect him to rack up the tackles this year. He's going to play all 3 sets of downs. He can cover. He can stop the run if needed. Gavin Moll will be the middle of this defense, and hopefully everybody's able to feed off of him. Then at the will linebacker spot, there's Dylan Traynor, who's going to be the starter. Had 43 tackles as well last year for the team. Pretty decent linebacker group, all things considered. I think for this team, maybe a little bit stronger, I even would say, than the defensive line. And I believe linebacker play is pretty important. So it's good that we start in year number 1 with those positions. There's also true freshman Julius Puryear, who from Florida, who will probably take over after year number 1. Then we get into the secondary, specifically the cornerback position, and this is where I think the weakest part of this team starts to show. You do have senior corner Keontae Jenkins, who comes over from Coastal Carolina last year, where he only had 1 tackle with DeShonta Clears, but he is the best corner right out of the gate for this team. You know, it's not saying much, so to speak, considering our cornerback room is not very good, but at least we get him for 1 season. Hopefully he can, you know, be sort of an anchor, and I don't have to worry about both sides of the field, because the other side is going to be kind of abysmal. You have Khalil Ali, a redshirt freshman who transfers from Boston College, did not play with the Eagles last year, but he will probably get the first chance on the other side of the field. There's also junior Kayshawn Cox Jr., who's also a junior, funny enough, who could also work over there. He is probably a better corner, like cover corner, than Ali off the gate, but he is a junior and Ali is a little bit younger, so I think that could play more of an impact long-term if we want to think long-term rather than year number 1. There's also Jason McBurrows who could play as well. He's more of a bump-and-run kind of corner, the best man-cover corner on this team, so he will get some playing time as well. And there's also true freshman Nair Domney from Scottsdale, Arizona, who I'd like to get some snaps for as well. A little bit smaller at 5'9", 172, but in terms of the future, I think he will definitely find the field this year. And if he doesn't, then we'll redshirt him early. To free safety we go now. This is the top-rated defensive player, is KTCA, who last year led the team with 4 interceptions. Listed as free safety, says he's a box specialist. I think he'll play all over the field in terms of center field safety, in terms of in the box against the run. A good versatile guy, and he's only a junior, and it doesn't look like he wants to transfer out. So that's kind of nice. We'll have KT Shea for a couple of seasons. We have good depth behind him as well, though, and Hassan Manning Jr., who I think will find the field as well. If we want to go into like some 3 safety looks, if we're really struggling in the cornerback spot, maybe he can come in and play some nickel. 5'11", 185. He's got plus 70 coverage in both man and zone. Had 33 tackles last year for the Blue Hens, so he's got some experience as well and could help out a secondary that's desperately lacking in that regard. At strong safety, Kingsley Royal will probably start off the rip, a true sophomore from Atlanta, Georgia. It says he's a hybrid kind of guy. He's definitely a lot worse than Royal and Shea, or Shea and Manning, I should say. But I think he will start on the field. If he does start to struggle, I have no problem moving Manning over to the strong safety spot. There's also junior Dylan Worley over there as well, in case we need some more depth. As far as the kicker, it will be a senior Nate Reed, who last year was not overly that impressive. He was 90% from extra point, and he was 7-10 on field goals, which is 70%. Behind him is sophomore Skylar Shoulder, who will be the kicker of the future, and if Reed struggles again this year, could step up in that role. As far as punter, Josh Cuppett will be the punter for this year. There's also sophomore Brock Glass on the bench, and that'll do it for the Delaware Blue Hens. The talent is obviously going to be lacking with this team. Obviously, moving up from the FCS is not easy, but we are playing in the Conference USA. In terms of the schedule, I'll take a look at the top 25 first. Here's a look at who are going to be at the top of the rankings going into year number one. Number one is Texas, followed by Penn State, Ohio State, Georgia, who's surprisingly enough not getting any first place votes. Notre Dame at 5, Oregon at 6, Clemson at 7, LSU, Alabama, Illinois at number 10, rounding out the top 10. Florida at number 11, my alma mater, the South Carolina Gamecocks at 12, Miami, BYU, Arizona State, Michigan, Kansas State, Iowa State, Ole Miss, SMU, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Louisville, and Texas Tech round out the top 25. In terms of the schedule, here's a look at what we will be rolling with going into year number one. We have a bye week in week 0. Then we'll play FCS East, who in real life is Delaware State. The Route 1 rivalry will start off in week number 1. And funny enough, Delaware State's actually coached by Deshaun Jackson, so I thought that was kind of interesting. I'll have to find a way to work that in. I did that last year with the early portion of this Dynasty when you can do team builder teams, but I do want to show some highlights from Delaware State. I don't know if we'll play the full game, but I got a little something in the works there. Then we play our first true FBS team at Colorado. That's going to be the money game for this squad. It's not going to be easy. And then we round out early conference play playing UConn at home. Then we start Conference USA play at Florida International. We have a bye week before returning home against Western Kentucky, before another bye week. And then we hit the road against the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, at home against Middle Tennessee, at Liberty, at home against LA Tech. And then we go to Sam Houston, have a non-conference game late at Wake Forest to pump them up, before ending year number 1 at home against UTEP in what will be the Miners' final game in the Conference USA. So I think that's pretty cool. So that's a look at the Delaware Blue Hens going into year number 1. I think that's all we're going to look at here today. Next episode, we will get into week 0 and week number 1 in the Delaware Blue Hens Dynasty. I cannot wait to get into this one. That will be tomorrow as we look to get some gameplay going in this series. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you drop that like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more Dynasty mode content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.